Hello, everyone, and welcome to the weekly Wrangle. This week's topic is don't make these interview mistakes. I just went through 107 resumes recently. I put a job posting out for CG Forge, and I was blown away by the number of applicants that I received. Now, being on the other side of this equation, being in the hiring side of things, is a very interesting perspective. And it's something that I want to share with you all today so that you have a better sense of what it takes to land a job. Here's the application, and it's probably the easiest thing you ever saw. It's the first and last name, email, address, LinkedIn profile URL, and a demo reel link and password. I don't even have an area to upload your CV or your resume or any of that because I'm going to assume that at least 50% of them are AI generated. And I don't want to go through 107 AI generated resumes. It doesn't really do anything for me when it comes to determining who a better applicant is. Now, I'm a little bit extreme in that. I think most HR recruiters, most people do want to see a demo reel, a CV, and all that. And if you do run across that, which you probably will, make sure that everything is spell checked. Make sure that you actually use AI to critique your resume. It's probably the best way to make sure that everything is looking polished, honestly. But as we are about to find, even this simple application is something that many people failed at right away. And I'll tell you why here in a moment. When I receive all the responses, this is what it looks like on my end when I'm going through everything. Google Docs automatically generates a whole spreadsheet of this with everyone's answers. So everyone's name, email, etc. But imagine you're me and it's been 5 days and look at how many people you now have to go through. It's a lot of people. There's a lot of demo reels. There's a lot of information that needs to be processed here. And in my position, or if you were in my position, what would you do if you had to make a decision to pick one person out of 107 in this example right here? Well, you'd start doing a process of elimination based on the easy things first. And one easy thing is who answered my questions. Now, some people here, as an example, under the address, didn't really provide me an address. They just said India, or they just said Sydney, or something like that. Now, I understand people like their privacy, but on the other hand, it's also a pain because one day, if I have to pay them money, I need to know what their address is to actually send them a payment, as an example. Now, I didn't disqualify anyone for not putting out their address because I understand privacy is important, but just so you know, other recruiters will do that because you didn't answer their question. So you definitely want to make sure you do that. Another thing as well is that some people made duplicate entries. There's only about 2 or 3 people that submitted twice, but that was a bit confusing. And it was also one of those things where I'm not sure which video they wanted me to watch. I'm not sure which thing was the thing they wanted, to submit. And for that reason, it was easy to rule them out because I just didn't want to deal with the hassle of it, frankly. So make sure that you get it right the first time and answer all the questions the way that they should be answered. Here's another thing that happens sometimes. People provide me a URL and it goes to a page like this. It provides a warning and it says, hey, what's going on here? You're being tracked. This is a redirect link or an unsecure link of some kind. And well, this wasn't a virus. I mean, the link was fine. It brought me to the demo reel, but it definitely spooked me a little bit. I thought, I don't know, someone's sending me a virus right now? Is someone directing me to a page that is not so great? I don't know. And yeah, I almost didn't actually consider this person because of this warning right here. So you also need to watch out for that. Anything that's a redirect link, don't do it. As a matter of fact, I'd say about 25 to 30% of these links brought me to a place that was not directly to their demo reel. I want to keep people's information private, so I'm not going to give you a specific person's example of this. However, what I would say is if you give me a link or if you give anyone a link to your demo reel, bring it directly to a Vimeo page. I had videos that didn't feature a little time bar for me to scrub through. I had videos that were maybe 4 or 5 videos that I found on someone's personal website, and I don't know which video they want me to look at. And so I know I got 170 of these things to go through. Forget it. This person's disqualified, right? You need to go directly to a Vimeo video player or a YouTube player. That's it. There's no other buts about it. Don't bring it to your personal website. Don't make me click any more than once in order to get to the video you want me to see. And other recruiters would say the same thing. If they have to guess at where to find this information, then you didn't answer the question properly, and it makes it a lot easier to disqualify you. If you manage to answer all the questions properly, then the next thing is to actually watch the reel. And with those demo reels, I found that there was a lot of pyro, like a lot of pyro. Probably 80 to 90% of every effects shot I saw was pyro of some kind. It was too much, I would say. And if you want to stand out, I found that the topics that stood out the most would be crowds, feathers, anything that's MPM, especially if you integrated it really nicely into a scene. That was nice to see. Anything that's modern too, like if Side Effects just came out with something and you were recently experimenting with it and made a great shot from it, that's good because it tells me that you're someone who's staying up to date with the latest and greatest techniques. That's also a very good plus. You have to know that anyone who's watching this reel who is effects artists themselves is going to recognize if you copied a tutorial. They're going to recognize if you did some research on a new thing recently, and all of that goes a long way. Speaking of tutorials, I really don't recommend copying a tutorial exactly the way it was in whatever the shot is. I've seen a lot of the Rebel Way projects. I've seen the Double Jump projects. I've seen CG Forge projects. I've seen all of them out there, and pretty much all of them, right? And it's obvious when you just copy something directly. And the problem with that is I don't know if you really know what you're doing. And that's the whole point of a demo reel, is to find someone that knows what they're doing. Now, I can also say that there were some experienced artists who have worked on big movies who had big, impressive shots. And I don't really know if I'm looking at their work or if I'm looking at the work of their coworkers. It becomes a thing where when you're involved with large projects, it's very easy to blend into a pretty looking shot and say that I did this because it's technically true, but not obvious if you actually knew what you were doing. Or if someone else did most of it and then you were just part of the team and you rendered it out. That all goes to say that when you are showcasing your work, if you are a junior, it's okay to take inspiration from tutorials, but change it up. Try to trick me into thinking that this is an original project because you've changed the tutorial so much and made it your own. That's good. If you are an experienced artist, do a breakdown. I know that if you do a breakdown, most likely you weren't lazy about it. Most likely you know what went into it, all the different layers, and it's kind of like proof that, not really proof, but it's more likely that you were the one who knew what was happening when I see that breakdown in a fancy shot. Another thing that stands out to me for anyone who's experienced is personal projects. I think what happens is professionals get really busy. They don't have the extra time to do a personal project or whatever. But the problem is that, again, I can't tell what you actually know. And even if you're a supervisor for, let's say, 25 or 30 years, really experienced and have incredible productions under your belt, I don't know if you were practicing Houdini 20 years ago or if you were practicing it yesterday. Because what happens is that in some businesses, you get to a point where you're really not opening Houdini much at all throughout the day, and you're more just a project manager there to help with technical questions every now and then. And if you stay out of the game, if you're not really practicing Houdini, then it's difficult for me to know if you actually have kept up and you still know what you're talking about, because things change so much, especially with Houdini. So for someone who's really senior who really has a lot of experience. Personal projects can be a remedy to that. And I think it's great to include a bunch of great looking shots. It's impressive, it's awesome. But if you just put in at least one or two of your own experiments that is 100% you, that's going to go a very long way. Especially if it's some kind of simulation that relates to new tech that came out recently, that like NPM as an example, right? As of recording, that's a fairly new type of thing that Side Effects is doing. That would be great to pair with all the amazing shots you already have. Based on the demo reel, I'm going to limit this down to maybe 10 to 20% of the total candidates, and then I'll take a deeper dive into their LinkedIn. I actually don't even look at their LinkedIn. I don't look at their work history until I look at their reel. So keep that in mind as well. If you're a junior, it's not always going to disqualify you if your work is good enough, and that's a good thing. So when I went to people's LinkedIn and I looked through the post history and I Googled their name, which, by the way, everyone will Google your name and see what comes up first. You want to make sure that your online presence isn't political and it's not controversial and it's not combative all over the place. The reason why is because if I find someone, and I did find a couple people that were really negative, that were really, just constantly upset about something, were constantly moping about the state of the industry, were just really wrapped up in all the BS out there, that to me is someone who's going to bring that energy to my business and to me as well, eventually. Now, some people can make that separation, most can't, honestly. And it's going to manifest in subtle ways. It's not like, I have anyone that's going on a bunch of Trump rants or something like that in my Discord. That's not what's happening. But it's still can just that negativity can work its way into your work, and it can work its way into your motivation and how much you're dragging your feet if I'm looking for something. And eventually too, if someone's hiring and let's say that this is an in-person office, that negativity can spread like wildfire and it can cause some serious issues in the culture of a particular company. So that's all to say that I think it's great to have your own opinions. You're obviously free to do and say whatever you want. But the consequence, if you want to get very combative with all of that in a public way, the consequence of it is that many people are going to look at you and they're going to say, is this person right for my culture? And most likely the answer is no if they find a bunch of that stuff all over your profile. So avoid the negativity. Try to maintain a clean online presence. Many people do not do that. And no matter how good your work is, no matter how good your resume is, it doesn't matter if you're someone that falls into this category. After I check that, the next thing I'm looking at is the work history. And I'm not going to lie, if you've worked at some impressive studios, that helps. I think that definitely is a plus for you. Experience matters at this point, I would say. However, it still isn't the only deciding factor. When I was hiring, I was in my mind open to both newer, kind of greener people and more experienced people because they all have their different sets of pros and cons. The pros for someone who's green, or in other words, the pros for someone who is newer, is that many of them are willing to work really hard and affordably. Now, I provide the same pay for everyone, regardless if they're junior or higher for this particular thing I was hiring for. But it is a plus if you're newer that usually you're not as expensive as someone who is senior. That's a plus. Also, if you are newer and you're willing to work hard and you're willing to take direction, you're willing to listen, and just be a great worker for a specific task, that's nice because you're not burnt out. Some people that have a lot of experience are also more burnt out. They're more opinionated. They may be more stubborn. It just happens as we all get older. So I think that there's pros and cons to both sides. But if you're someone who's experienced, then you have further connections throughout the industry. So if things go well, it elevates whomever you're working with as well. That's a plus. The other plus to someone who is experienced is that, well, you're experienced. You have a longer history of doing production, of doing these different things, and you're going to bring that to the table. I would say that most studios want to find a nice blend of people. Some people that are newer, some people that are more experienced. Some studios just go for really experienced people, I'm not going to lie. And some studios have to go with people that are green because they're cheap and they don't want to pay a lot of money. That's the other reality too for some places. But the bottom line is that if you're green, don't assume that you're automatically disqualified, because you do have a unique set of advantages compared to someone who's more experienced. And if you're experienced, don't think that your resume is enough to carry you all the way in every single situation. If you manage to make it this far, then you'll finally get to the interview itself. And there's a million things online that talk about interviews and how to do one properly. And, just if you haven't looked into that stuff, ask ChatGPT or something. It'll give you a great answer. But from my experience, interviews are more about getting to know you as a person. So be friendly. Just be yourself. And I think as well, you have to realize that your work has done most of the talking for you already. When it comes to your competency, the fact that you are interviewing means that you are good and you are one of the top candidates amongst many, many other people. So try to use that as a source of confidence and hopefully to get you to relax a little bit and just, hang out and have a good time. Usually at this point in the game, it's just about getting to know you. Sometimes people do try to trip up other people in interviews by throwing technical questions or by creating large amounts of silence that are really awkward to see what you do when things are awkward. Sometimes you do get these little games that people play. But like I said, if you're just yourself and you're friendly and kind and all of that, you have nothing to worry about at the end of the day. It's only if you're rude, arrogant, if you interrupt people talking all the time, if you are egotistical, that's the kind of stuff that is a red flag for people in their personality that can disqualify someone. Otherwise, you're probably good as long as you're just a nice person, I'd say. There you have it. Those are some of my personal thoughts and opinions about what not to do in a resume and some things of what to do when you are applying for a job position. I know it's really tough out there right now. I definitely feel for anyone that's looking for work as of recording. It's very competitive out there. And, well, every little detail matters when it's competitive. So that's really the main takeaway from this video. But let me know what you think. Is there anything that I missed here? I'm sure there's plenty of other things that could be helpful for others to know about when applying for jobs. And hopefully by tightening up some of these screws that I talked about, it can help some of you find a job as well. Good luck out there. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day.